The final season of investigation on Skinwalker Ranch began like any other censor's data skepticism, but ended with a revelation that redefined what reality might contain. Beneath the mesa, a drill struck something that shattered bits made for steel and granite. The team recovered ceramics that refused to cool in liquid nitrogen and levitated when exposed to magnets. The microscopic structure of these materials was dynamic. When bombarded with electrons, holes appeared and then vanished, healing as if alive. They were precise, machine-pressed, and impossible. Paired with traces of aerospace metals coated in aluminum oxide, the very substance used on NASA spacecraft, it suggested that either human technology had reached this mesa long before anyone admitted, or something non-human had left it. There, above the ground, LiDAR and radar revealed the bubble a perfect invisible sphere encasing the triangle. Inside its bounds, everything failed. Rockets were deflected, drones repelled, cameras reset, and data collapsed into noise. When the scientists ignited massive pyrotechnic explosions, smoke rings that should have risen perfectly circular twisted into distorted shapes. At 2,000 feet, the bubble's upper boundary, they split in two. GPS units placed inside showed movement across miles, while stationary radiation sensors dropped to absolute zero. The bubble did not just distort instruments, it seemed to rewrite reality within its domain. Thermal cameras caught UAPs darting above the mesa, moments after each explosion, followed by ripples of heat and cold across the ridge. One GPS beacon's phantom movement stretched 20 miles north, perfectly synchronized with the anomalies in the air. It was as if the bubble projected a force field that bent data and matter alike. The phenomenon extended across the ranch. Drones near Dry Gulch Creek froze mid-flight, detecting invisible aircraft. Laser beams fired into the sky bent unnaturally, and one camera captured a luminous craft slicing directly through a beam before systems shut down. Nothing behaved by conventional physics. Every attempt to energize the bubble to provoke it produced the same reaction. The unseen reacted back. When Brandon Fugel assembled a panel of military and scientific leaders to interpret the findings, the consensus was uneasy wonder. General Lance Lord from Air Force Space Command recognized materials resembling classified heat shields. Jay Stratton and Eric Davis saw patterns echoing UAP propulsion research. Gary Nolan suggested biological or photonic intelligence in the ceramic's self-organizing lattice. None could dismiss the implication Skinwalker Ranch harbored technology, either ancient extraterrestrial or clandestine, that merged material science with field manipulation. A system designed not only to conceal itself, but to interact with intruders. In response, the team decided to escalate their research beyond terrestrial limits. Partnering with SEOPS and SpaceX, they began designing a CubeSat satellite dedicated solely to Skinwalker Ranch. From orbit, it would pass daily above the coordinates, collecting high-frequency data invisible from Earth's surface. The aim was no longer merely observation, but correlation, linking every terrestrial anomaly with potential cosmic activity. The launch symbolized a new era, from folklore to physics, from ranch to orbit, from myth to measurement. The team closed the season certain of one truth: the ranch was not passive ground. It was an active system, an interface between realities waiting to be decoded. It began as so many discoveries do, with a sound that wasn't supposed to exist. The hum of the drill in the Utah desert was steady, mechanical, predictable. Then it stuttered, shuddered, and fell silent like a pulse stopping mid-beat. Beneath the red rock and the dry wind, something inside the mesa had stopped the machine. The drill head, built to cut through steel and granite, wouldn't advance another inch. The crew increased pressure. Nothing. 15,000 pounds of torque pressed against the obstruction, but it held fast. When the bit was withdrawn, it was fused to the shaft, melted solid yet cold to the touch. Heat had vanished. Energy had been consumed. And the question that would haunt every scientist who touched Skinwalker Ranch was born: what can absorb that much energy without getting warm? Inside the extracted debris lay fragments of ceramic unlike anything cataloged on Earth. Each piece was smooth, precise, and uniform, as if pressed by machines rather than formed by nature. The archaeologist on site, Chris Roberts, ran his fingers along one edge and felt the perfection of its thickness exact to the millimeter across its entire surface. That alone was astonishing, but the real revelation came in the lab. When the fragments were cooled to -320 degrees Fahrenheit in liquid nitrogen, they refused to cool. The nitrogen boiled furiously around them for minutes, but the ceramic remained warm as if storing heat in defiance of thermodynamics. When placed above a magnet, the fragments drifted, lifting gently, shifting sideways. Repelled by a force field, they seemed to generate themselves. The scientists stared in disbelief. It was the Meissner effect. They had found a superconductor. But this was no ordinary discovery. Superconductors are the stuff of dreams, the backbone of quantum computing and magnetic levitation materials that carry energy with zero resistance. Humanity is still struggling to master them at high temperatures. Yet here was a fragment of one buried deep inside a mesa in rural Utah, its origins unknown, its composition beyond replication. Under the scanning electron microscope, the surface revealed a living geometry. When struck with an electron beam, it morphed holes appearing, expanding, and then when the beam was switched off, closing again, the structure healing itself. The ceramic behaved like a biological organism capable of reversible transformation. It wasn't only superconductive, it was adaptive. The team compared it with ordinary ceramics. Nothing else reacted. This was unique. Then the metallurgical test revealed traces of aluminum oxide, the same compound used as protective shielding on spacecraft. The metallurgist Thomas Winterton recognized it immediately. "This is the coating we use in satellites," he said, the same used by NASA and SpaceX. The composition matched aerospace materials developed in the 1,960 seconds. And just a few meters away in the same drilling layer, the archaeologists found a U.S. nickel dated 1,964. That discovery broke the scientific detachment of the moment. Because coins are not geological accidents, they're timestamps. Archaeologists use them as markers in excavations to indicate the year of a dig. Someone had been here before. Was this the site of a secret government recovery, a buried craft, or something older, something the government had only found and then hidden away? The deeper they looked, the more the lines between science and conspiracy blurred. While they debated the origin of the ceramic, another anomaly emerged above ground. The scientists began noticing disturbances in the air, subtle distortions that appeared on LiDAR scans, an invisible sphere enveloping the area known as the triangle. They called it the bubble. It wasn't a metaphor, but a measurable structure, an electromagnetic dome roughly 2,000 feet across, extending both above and beneath the surface. Within it, instruments failed. GPS coordinates wandered miles off course. Drones stopped midair as though colliding with an invisible wall. Rockets launched toward it veered off their programmed trajectory. Radiation detectors dropped to zero, forming what the physicists began to call the dead zone. Determined to test the bubble's limits, the team turned to fire. Working with pyrotechnic specialists, they detonated enormous fuel mines at several points along the bubble's perimeter. Each explosion produced a giant mushroom cloud and a circular smoke ring. Under normal conditions, these rings rise evenly symmetrical and stable. But at Skinwalker Ranch, the rings twisted into strange figure-8 shapes, splitting apart as they ascended. At roughly 2,000 feet, right where the bubble's upper boundary was predicted, they fractured, dispersing into chaos. High-speed cameras capturing the event glitched simultaneously, resetting to factory defaults. Spectrum analyzers detected a recurring pulse at 1.2 gigahertz, the same frequency the team had transmitted months earlier in a separate experiment. It was as if the bubble had remembered their signal and was now echoing it back. Then in the middle of the explosions, thermal cameras picked up something streaking above the mesa, two elongated objects glowing hotter than their surroundings flying west toward Homestead 2. Seconds later, a wave of heat rippled across the mesa ridge, followed by a rapid cooling. Whatever those objects were, they interacted directly with the environment. The following day, a stationary GPS sensor that hadn't moved an inch suddenly registered as traveling 20 miles north. The data showed acceleration, deceleration, and eventual return, all while the device sat motionless on a table. The bubble wasn't just interfering with instruments, it was altering the data itself, rewriting digital reality. By now, the team had accumulated more questions than answers. Why did GPS fail near the bubble's edges? Why did drones freeze? Why did lasers bend? Why did radiation vanish? And why did the disturbances coincide with appearances of unidentified aerial phenomena? The correlations were consistent. Each time the environment was energized through explosions, lasers, or electromagnetic pulses, something appeared, something that reacted. The scientists decided to bring their findings to experts who had spent careers dealing with the unexplained. In Salt Lake City, they convened a meeting with Jay Stratton, the former director of the Pentagon's UAP task force, astrophysicist Dr. Eric Davis, Stanford geneticist Dr. Gary Nolan, and retired Air Force General Lance Lord, former commander of U.S. Space Command. Together, they reviewed data imagery and physical samples. The meeting became a landmark in modern investigative science. As the footage played, the group saw the ceramic levitating above a magnet, the nitrogen boiling endlessly around it, the self-healing microstructure, the LiDAR scans of the spherical field, the smoke rings collapsing midair, thermal recordings of glowing aerial objects. They sat in stunned silence. This, said General Lord, is advanced aerospace material, but it's not ours. Dr. Nolan leaned forward. The structure behaves like intelligent matter, responsive, adaptive. We're not just looking at a machine, we're looking at something that might decide how to behave. Jay Stratton nodded. We're seeing technology that manipulates not only energy but information. It's interacting with our measurements. It's aware that we're measuring it. That sentence marked a turning point. If the bubble was responding, then it wasn't merely physical, it was conscious, or at least programmed. The scientists began to suspect that the bubble and the buried ceramics were two parts of a single system. The object beneath might be the generator and the bubble its electromagnetic envelope. The implications were staggering. If the ceramic material could conduct limitless energy, it could power the bubble indefinitely. If it absorbed heat and radiation, it could shield whatever was inside. And if the bubble distorted space and data, it could conceal it completely. The mesa might be a vault, a hidden containment structure. But whose? Some hypothesized that it was extraterrestrial technology, a remnant of a civilization that once monitored Earth. Others proposed a darker theory that it was a Cold War experiment, perhaps an advanced propulsion prototype buried after catastrophic failure. The discovery of the 1,964 coin, the presence of aerospace materials, and the proximity to government research facilities in Utah made that possibility plausible. Brandon Fugel, the ranch's owner, stood at the edge of this debate like a man watching a doorway open. We're dealing with a reality that challenges the foundation of science, he said. If this is human technology, it's been hidden from the world for half a century. If it's not, then it's something even greater. To find out, the team resolved to extend their investigation beyond the Earth's surface. Partnering with the aerospace company SEOPS and integrating with SpaceX's Falcon 9 launch program, they began constructing a 6U CubeSat, a compact satellite dedicated exclusively to monitoring Skinwalker Ranch from orbit. From 300 miles above, it would scan the ranch daily, capturing electromagnetic fluctuations, infrared anomalies, and gravitational data invisible from the ground. The satellite would serve as an external eye, free from the distortions of the bubble. It was the logical next step, and yet it carried symbolic weight. Humanity was for the first time turning its gaze not just outward into space, but downward toward an enigma rooted within its own planet. As winter descended, the ranch lay dormant beneath the snow. The mesa stood quiet, concealing its secrets. The bubble was invisible, but the scientists could still sense it, its electromagnetic pulse faint yet steady, like the breath of something sleeping beneath the earth. The data collected over the year filled terabytes of storage, but in their hearts, the researchers knew that the real discovery was not in the numbers. It was in the pattern, the dialogue between human inquiry and a phenomenon that seemed to answer back. They had set out to study an anomaly. Instead, they had encountered intelligence. What is intelligence, after all, if not the capacity to respond? Skinwalker Ranch had responded through energy spikes, through light, through silence. Every instrument that failed, every sensor that drifted, every camera that glitched was part of the conversation. The scientists were no longer just observers. They were participants in a system that blurred the line between experimenter and experiment. When the CubeSat launches, its sensors will scan the coordinates daily. The data it sends back will be the next verse in a story that is no longer about UFOs or folklore, but about physics, consciousness, and contact. The ranch is not merely a location, it is a mechanism, a node in a network that spans earth and sky. Perhaps that is why so many before them, scientists, soldiers, and secret agencies, were drawn to this patch of Utah desert. Not because of what they could see, but because of what could see them. In the stillness of the mesa, beneath layers of time and dust, a buried structure waits. Its surface is ceramic, its heart metallic, its function unknown. Above it, an invisible dome hums with frequencies that defy logic. And between them, humanity stands curious, terrified, and humbled, staring into the architecture of the unknown. In the end, it is not about proving the paranormal. It is about confronting the limits of what we call reality. because perhaps Skinwalker Ranch is not a window into another world. Perhaps it is the world seen without the comforting illusion that we understand it. The bubble has revealed itself, and in doing so, it has revealed us our hunger, our arrogance, our fragile belief that the universe can be measured. But as every scientist who has walked that land now knows, there are places where measurement becomes dialogue and dialogue becomes revelation. The question is not whether we can explain Skinwalker Ranch. The question is whether we are ready for what it might explain about us.